In this video, I'm going to be breaking down my editing process on how I turn my digital photos into kind of have a more filmic feel to it. And this is the lovely photo that we're going to be editing here today. This is something that I've been doing recently to help me get a better image out of the editing process of this photo. And that's what I like to do, is just go and just look at this image in a full frame context. So I'm just going to stare at this image and look at what is the most important thing that kind of jumps out to you in this photo. Now, for me, that is how everything is just one color, right? Everything just lives in either the red, the orange, or the yellow tone. Now, with that information being said, we're going to go ahead and go back and look at this important thing here. This is the color wheel. I'm not going to go super deep into the color wheel. This is just an editing process, but this is what I do internally in my brain while I'm editing photos. So I look at this color wheel here, and as you can see, anything that is across each other here, so like the yellow and purple, which is infamous for Laker colors, are complementary colors, green and red, blue and orange, so on and so forth. So with this entire image, we're seeing everything lives within the red tonal structure, right? Her skin is going to have some orange and some yellow to deal with. We have some gold accents here on the shoes and on the buttons on the blazer, and this entire blazer in the backdrop is red. Now, when everything is working on just one side of the color wheel, we call that an analogous color scheme. Now, I just want you guys to keep that in mind. That's just why I dressed her up in this entire red outfit with the red backdrop, because I knew that we would be working with just one color scheme here in this photo. So we're going to go back to the photo here. Whoops, let's go ahead and fill that up. So we're going to go back to the photo here. And if we look at our histogram, the information is telling us here that there's no information that's living within the highlights, the whites, and there's barely anything living within that midtones. And if there is anything here, it's on the kind of darker side of things. So the first thing that's telling me is that we need to bump up the exposure of this image. So we're just going to go ahead and go till I feel this is comfortable. So to me, plus 80 is a comfortable range where I'm dealing with a lot of the image being more closer in the midtones, some information here in the highlights as well. And we're not really clipping. As you can see, there's nothing really at the end there. And we still raised up the blacks to give us some more shadow detail within this entire image. We have a little bit more of a dynamic range to work with. But the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do after that exposure is go into the profiles. And this is one of the bigger benefits of shooting with a raw profile, is that you get the ability to kind of correct exposure or white balance mistakes. And I make a ton of them. So we're going to go and look at these different values and see which one kind of works best with this image. So we have Adobe Landscape. Now, personally, I love saturation within my image, but as you can see in this image here, it's making the values of the backdrop look a little bit more of a pink, and that's not the hue that I'm kind of going for. And without any editing, it's giving us a lot of saturation, and I personally don't like that. So let's see what Adobe Portrait gives us. Now, this is one of my favorite Adobe profiles for editing portraits. As you can see, it gives it more of a flatter image. You can see the blacks have been moved slightly closer to the midtones, and it just gives us a great starting point to work with to give a lot of color without really oversaturating the image. But let's see the other ones as well. So we have Adobe Standard, which, I mean, it's not bad either, right? Nothing wrong with that. And Adobe Vivid. Once again, love the brightness, but I don't like to add saturation until I'm completely done editing the photo. So that's not something we're going to do. And Adobe Monochrome is just black and white. This image does look kind of cool in black and white, but for now we're going to work in the color space, which is the Adobe Portrait. So going down here, there is this white balance clicker. There is no true white in this image. And if we click on her skin, you see that this isn't really that appealing to us in this image here. So we're not going to work with that. And personally, I would love to kind of lean more towards the warmer side of this image here. So something along this range. Let's go a little bit closer here. 684. And I'm kind of like in that warmer tone of this image, because once again, we're only working with analogous color scheme. So it's best to kind of lean towards anything that's in this value range for us to get a more appealing image just by nature. So, and I'm liking this white balance already. As we can see, this is already a way better starting point than this to this. I know this is a little bit flatter, but don't worry, we're going to work with this and kind of get it a little bit better. So You always can click the slash key here to see your before and after, to see where you're kind of heading. And I already really love this. This is giving more of a filmic look. So after we're tweaking the white balance with the blue and the yellows, we're going to go into the green and magentas and kind of slightly bring that a little bit more magenta. And this is the base here that we're going to be working with the exposure corrected and the white balance. And we're going to go with our before and after just to look at this here. And this is already looking a little bit more dynamic than this here. As you can see, so as we're looking at this here, I'm already loving this as a starting point. So let's go ahead and look down to the contrast. I don't like to add contrast on my images through the contrast slider, just due to the fact that I'm just not really a fan of that. As you can see, what that does to the histograms, just pushing everything closer and pushing everything farther away. But you can really do that with the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks with a lot of dynamic range that we have in this photo here. So what the first thing I'm going to do is go to the highlights, and I want to push the highlights a little bit farther towards the right side of the image there. So I'm going to go probably around here. And as you can see here, this is a little bit more than, let's say for instance, here. There's a lot more of the shadows pushed into the midtones. There's a lot more value to work with on this image here. Now with the shadows, I'm gonna bring that down slightly due to the fact that we've lost a lot of the shadows with the exposure being bumped up. So we're gonna go around -20. Now with the whites and the blacks, I'm gonna push both of these down as well. So let's see what happens if we push it all the way up. Oh, we don't want that. We're gonna go -30, probably -30. And see with the blacks. See, I love that, but that is a little bit too much for this photo already. And we will achieve that with the curves. So let's go ahead and go probably -29. I like that. So with this photo here, I'm not going to mess with any of the texture, clarity, dehaze, vibration, or saturation. Besides bringing the saturation down ever so slightly, I always love to put portraits in -6. For some reason, that's just like a perfect range to still keep the vibrancy of the photo, but yet the skin tones always look more normal than I would expect them to look. So I like to keep it at -6 for a lot of the portraits that I do. And one of the most important slides is the curves here. If we're looking at this image again, still, what is the thing that we're looking at? A lot of it is still leaning towards the shadows, which I'm perfectly fine with as long as we still have highlight definition in the photo. But let's go ahead and kind of see, we tweak around with the lights. I kind of would want to push this up a little bit right there. Let's go with the darks. Push this down probably 40. And let's kind of play around with this one here. Let's probably go negative somewhere in this range. Let's see. Ooh, I like that. Let's go something like that. All right, so little bend in the curve. There's nothing wrong with that. And let's go ahead and look at the before and after. So before we're here, after we're here. And as you can see, the before has a lot more magenta going on. It's really not working the best with the skin and the jacket. And with this base, everything is kind of a little bit more smooth now. We're having more of a cinematic look to the image overall. It's just more appealing just to look at. We haven't even edited the skin, the photo, jacket, anything like that. But just with this base here, we're already starting at a great point. So let's go ahead and go down to saturation. So we're looking back at this color wheel again. We know all of the image lives in this space. So what I like to do with things like this is I don't even want to give any of these colors an opportunity, a chance to kind of peek out. So I go in saturation, and anything that isn't that value, I just drop it all the way to -100. So we truly get the feel of this analogous color scheme. Sometimes some of these colors creep in, maybe due to flash or just the jackets or the clothes, but I usually like to bring them all the way down if they don't affect anything within the actual image. So, and the first thing I'm going to do here is kind of play around and see what happens if I bump all of these up or down. As you can see there, that looks pretty cool, but let's not do that right now. Let's see. As you can see, the skin is completely living in the orange space, so I'm just going to bring that down ever so slightly, probably -6, and like that. So let's go ahead and go into, I think the hues of the red are fine to me. I don't really want to tweak around with this. This looks pretty good as is. And luminosity. Luminosity here is going to mess with the, so with luminosity here, that's going to mess with the brightness of the value of that color. So as we see here, this brings the red all the way to almost like a pink and brings it almost down to a burgundy if we go the other way. I really, while editing this photo, I really do like the burgundy, but as you can see with her skin, it's just not, yeah, it's not gonna fly. I think that we're good here on the hue, saturation, and luminance values for now. So we're gonna go ahead and go down to split toning. I personally like to skip this and leave this in Photoshop, just due to the fact that if, let's say for instance, I bring a green value to the photo, I'm bringing it to the entire image. And what if I just want to bring it to the jacket and the dress? It just doesn't work out in Lightroom as well as I'd like it to. And so far, so good. This is the photo here. This is the before and after. As you can see, we've made some minor adjustments that bring out the analogous color scheme. And these are kind of things to keep in mind while editing photos on Lightroom is what is your purpose? What is your mission while editing your photo? Because if you lose that purpose, you lose that mission, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose the reason this photo may be captivating to someone who's first looking at it. So always remember this photo, what is the purpose and the mission of this photo is to kind of get over this analogous color scheme and give it the tonality and structure to really bring out the values of these colors while keeping this look intact here. All right, so here is the before and after. I think we're really kind of bringing that out a little bit more. And once we go to split toning, we'll really kind of dive a little bit deeper into getting these tones out of this portrait. So for now, let's go ahead and go down to lens corrections. And this was taken with my 24mm Nikkor lens. Now let's go ahead and go into the profile of the lens that I took this with. And this was automatically going to pick a Coolpix, which is not what we took this with. This was taken with a Nikkor 24mm f2.8, which is this lens here. So boom, as you can see with this here, now this is something a little bit minor. It doesn't really matter depending on what lens you shoot with. Sometimes this can really make a difference if you have vignetting going along the photo here. But for this photo, we're pretty much set here. So let's go ahead and keep going down. And we have the transform tool. I think this photo is fine as is. I don't really think we need to really crop anything out. We can do this here in post. So let's go ahead and keep going down. And these two values here, I don't like to do vignetting in Lightroom as well as grain. There's some people who love to add grain in Lightroom, and that's cool. I do it sometimes, but I've come to find out that getting a high-res version of a medium format film stock and using that and layering it on top of your image in Photoshop is so much more of a better idea. And if you guys want more on that, I'll do a video on that as well. But let's go ahead and go down to the split toning. So this right here is one of the most important values that you can do here in Lightroom. So with this image here, remember, we're trying to get this analogous color scheme off, right? So that is something that we're working with and trying to get over. But let's go ahead and back to this screen here. If we have magenta or green, which are the two shadow values that we can push it to, sure, we can add purple and it would still work out well. So the two values here that we can work with in the shadows is going to be green and purple. Now, personally, I already know what I'm going to choose, but we're going to go ahead and go to the extremes and see the difference between the twos. Now, in the extremes, I love this magenta here, but I know that with red being complementary to green, which we look at on our value sheet here, it's going to work so much better if we lean these shadows towards the greens. So we're going to go ahead and go to -21 here. Let's go. Boom. So we went ahead and leaned the colors more closer to the greens. I know that this doesn't seem like a major tweak here, but all of this is really working on a very subconscious level when you kind of view the image for the first time. These are the things that are going to stand out to you. I know we've been tweaking this image and it doesn't really seem like we've added much with a -21 tint value, but trust me, when you look at the color wheel, I feel like it makes a difference, kind of. Boom. So we added -21 of the green tint into the shadows, and I feel like that adds a little bit of an appealing feel to the image. So let's go ahead and go to the red primary hue and saturation. So I love this red already as it is. I don't really think that if we tweak it, it's going to be better. I don't think it needs to be orange, nor I think it needs to be this pink tone here. So I'm going to leave it at 0, but I do want more red in this image. So let's go ahead and bump this all the way to possibly 69. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. So we're going to leave it at 69 and boom, look at with the vibrancy of this red, the little minor amount of tint of the shadows we've added to the green and how much that just pops out. Just boom. You know what I mean? This is exactly why the color wheel helps so much. We're going to go ahead and add some more of a greener tint to this. Probably go plus 74. And let's see if we mess around with that. I think that's a little bit too much. Let's keep this at 0. But boom, there we go. So then let's go ahead and do -12. And let's see if we mess around with this. I think that's a little bit too much. All right. So this is the before and this is the after of the image here. I know this vibrancy of this red is kind of, actually, let's bring it down a little bit. See, let's keep it up, and this red is a little bit too much for me. So let's go saturation, go to red, bring it down ever so slightly. So boom and boom. So that is the image here in Lightroom. And this is the final result in Lightroom. And I will show you the after result in Photoshop to show you what I kind of brought out of this image a little bit more. Things that I want you to kind of take away from this video, even if this might have been a little bit more confusing. I know this is my first time kind of trying to break this down. So hopefully I do get better at this for you guys. But the one thing that I do want you to remember is before you even edit, just stare at the photo and just look, what is your purpose with editing? Because if you don't know the purpose, you're just going to be mindlessly logging away time trying to bring out something that you don't know you want. You're going to put a preset on it, call it a day. And I have no problem with presets, so just to keep in mind. But I just want you to keep in mind, if you have your intention with your photos down, it makes it so much more easier to edit photos. So there you go. That is my entire process in Lightroom and how I kind of edit my photos, the mentality, and just the overall approach to editing photos in general. This doesn't just apply to portraits, but landscapes, architecture, all that fun stuff as well. If you were a fan of this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and try to finish up this disposables projects for you guys that should be coming out next week. Super excited and pumped for that. But with that being said, it is your boy Wale, and I'm out, you guys. Peace.